One of the most dangerous crime families in the UK just lost two of their closest men in a brutal shooting. It happened in a bar in Spain when a masked shooter killed Eddie Lyons Jr. and Ross Monaghan in cold blood. The victims were part of the notorious Lyons crime family. A few days ago, the prime suspects in the case were the Daniel crime family, who are one of the biggest rivals of the Lyons. But 2 weeks after the shooting, the UK police have arrested a 44-year-old man in Liverpool who is believed to be the killer of the two men down. The question is, was he hired by the Daniels? What was the motive behind the murder? Let's go over the crime scene to find out. It was late Saturday night, May 31st. Monaghan's bar in Fuengirola was full, as it was the night of the Champions League final. Among the crowd were two well-known Scottish men, 43-year-old Ross Monaghan and 46-year-old Eddie Lyons Jr. Ross Monaghan ran the place, and Eddie was one of his closest friends. But the two associates of the Lyons crime family were not hiding or laying low here. They were out in the open with people they knew and in a place they trusted. At around 11:30 PM, a car pulled up near the entrance and a masked man stepped out who was dressed in all black. He was wearing a white cloth around his neck to cover his identity. This masked man walked straight up towards the bar and started shooting. Eddie was outside the bar when the shooter aimed at his chest and fired once. That one shot was enough as Eddie dropped to the floor instantly. People panicked and started running around. The second the shot rang out, Ross ran back into his own bar, probably thinking he would find safety inside. He didn't. Taking advantage of the chaos, the shooter ran after Ross Monaghan. CCTV caught what happened next. Ross was shot while he was trying to escape. He went down on all fours and tried crawling away. You could see it clearly in the footage. He was wearing a white t-shirt and blood started to soak through. The shooter walked up and fired again, at least 4 times in his chest and stomach. Ross leaned against the wall. He was barely sitting upright, bleeding out while everyone else inside was already gone. Witnesses say the whole thing took barely a minute, and the way it was done, people started calling it military-style murder. The shooter knew who he was after. He walked in, handled both targets and walked out, like someone who had done this before. Spanish police said, after killing Eddie and Ross in cold blood, the killer escaped on foot first, then rejoined someone waiting in a car nearby. He was in and out before anyone could even get the full plate number of the car. There is footage of Eddie lying on the ground outside, and inside, blood from Ross was already soaking into the bar floor. During this incident, a waitress and a man in black were seen bolting out of the way. The shooter ignored them completely, which tells us this attack was personal and very specific. No third person was hurt. By the time local police and emergency crews arrived, it was too late. Both men were already dead at the scene, and despite all the chaos, there was not much evidence left behind. The killer left no weapon and the car vanished. CCTV showed what happened, but the gunman's face stayed mostly covered. Later, police traced part of the escape route back to the N300 dual carriageway, which headed toward Ben Almadina, but no full license plate or full vehicle ID was recognized. So, who was this man and how was he arrested? On Friday, June 13, police in Liverpool arrested 44-year-old Michael Riley. Spanish authorities had sent over a formal request and they wanted him picked up for the double murder of Ross Monaghan and Eddie Lyons Jr. The Merseyside police carried out the arrest, but they weren't acting alone. The order came from Spain's National Police, and the whole thing was done with help from the UK's National Extradition Unit. So yes, this was not some random local arrest, it was done at Spain's request. Now why Spain? Because that's where the murders happened. Outside and inside a bar in Fuengirola, Spanish police are in charge of the case. Riley had already left Spain by the time they started closing in. Reports say he went to Portugal and then came back to the UK, which is how he ended up in Liverpool. That's why Spanish officers couldn't just grab him. They had to go through international channels, which is how the extradition warrant came in, and the UK agreed to move fast. The next day on Saturday, June 14, Riley was taken to Westminster Magistrates Court. That's where they officially started the extradition process. Spanish police want him sent back to face charges there. At court, Riley didn't say much. He was not allowed to apply for bail either because he was deemed a flight risk. The judge set his next court date for June 19 and said he would appear again by video link. Until then, he is staying in custody. Now the part that makes people raise an eyebrow is that Spanish police haven't explained how Riley was linked to the murders, not publicly at least. According to some rumours, he was identified through CCTV footage. The case is under a secrecy order, which means no one is allowed to share details while the investigation is still open. It is a common rule in Spain, especially in organised crime cases. But it is not like they just guessed. There is an active murder warrant out of Spain with his name on it, so investigators believe they have got enough to move forward. And just to be clear, this is not a minor charge. If extradited, Riley will be facing a full criminal process in Spain for 2 killings in one of the most high-profile and underworld murders on the Costa del Sol in years. So now we have the killer. This man is sitting in custody waiting to be shipped to Spain, and everyone's asking the same thing. Who actually wanted Ross Monaghan and Eddie Lyons Jr. dead? Who hired the hitman? Let's back it up. Do not consider Ross Monaghan as some foot soldier. People in Glasgow's underworld called him the real top man of the Lyons crew. Some even joked it shouldn't be called the Lyons gang at all, it's the Monaghan clan now. He had power, and he had a dark history in the UK. He even had connections to Spain, and more importantly, to the Kinahan cartel. This Irish drug empire has been flooding Europe with cocaine for years, the same cartel whose leaders are now being hunted by American and Irish officials, with £4 million bounties on their heads. Ross didn't meet them last year. His ties to the Kinahans go back to at least 2016, when he reportedly met Thomas Bomber Kavanagh, who ran the UK side of their operations. So when Ross got gunned down, the Kinahans got involved in the case. In fact, after the murders, Kinahan allies called the victims' families, offering condolences and telling them directly that they would get this sorted. Some Kinahan-connected figures even offered to attend the funerals, which is wild considering how visible and risky that would be, but it shows you just how close Ross was to their inner circle. This was personal to them too. But why would someone kill Ross? But let's look at his history. He had survived an assassination attempt before, in 2017, while dropping his daughter off at school in Penally, Glasgow. He took a bullet in the shoulder. The shooter pushed a baby stroller to blend in before pulling the trigger. That's how serious things were. After that, Ross moved to Spain to stay alive. He was already facing heat from Scotland, and Spain had become a sort of base for British gang figures. Marbella, Fuengirola, all of it. Mobs from the UK, Italy, Morocco, and the Balkans all operate there. So did the Kinians. It was familiar turf. But Ross's real fame came from an earlier case, related to the murder of Kevin Gerbil Carroll in 2010. Carroll was a feared enforcer for the Daniel crime family, which was the Lyons' longtime rival. He was shot dead in a supermarket car park in Glasgow. The man was shot 13 times in broad daylight by masked men. It was one of the biggest hits in Scottish gangland history, and guess who got charged for that murder? Yes, Ross Monaghan. He was arrested in 2010, just 10 days before his daughter was born. He spent 6 months on remand, but the case collapsed in 2012 because of a lack of evidence. The judge dropped the case, and Ross walked free. That was a massive blow to the Daniels, and a huge win for the Lyons. But the war between the Lyons and Daniels didn't start there. It goes all the way back to 2001, when a shipment of cocaine went missing from a house in Milton, Glasgow. It was meant for the Daniels. The Lyons crew were blamed for selling it off. That's when the feud started. Since then, there have been non-stop violent events. Drive-by shootings, firebombings, stabbings, and murders. The murder of Michael Lyons, who was a 21-year-old member of the Lyons crew, happened in 2006. He was shot dead in a garage in Lamb Hill. Then Kevin Carroll was killed in 2010, Ross was shot in 2017, and now, 2025, Ross and Eddie are gone in a double hit. Eddie Lyons Jr. had his own story too. In 2006, he was attacked and injured in an assault believed to be carried out by Carroll himself. The Daniels had already hit him once, but he survived. Eddie also faced trial in 2016 for a violent street attack outside a bar in East Dunbartonshire alongside Ross. That case collapsed too when the witnesses claimed they couldn't remember anything, which was quite suspicious. So yes, both Ross and Eddie were big names, and both had a long list of enemies. Naturally, after the Spain shooting, people immediately pointed fingers at the Daniels. Given the history, the Carroll case, the feud, it made sense. And let's not forget, Raymond Anderson and James MacDonald, who are 2 Daniels enforcers, are still locked up for the 2006 killing of Michael Lyons. So when Ross and Eddie were killed, the first theory was that this was payback, but then came the twist. Police Scotland released a statement saying there was no current intelligence linking the murders to the Daniels feud or anything happening in Operation Portalage, which is Scotland's investigation into recent gang attacks in Glasgow and Edinburgh. Over 40 arrests had already been made since March. The timing is suspicious though. Then came more confusion for the public when some in the Lyons camp started saying the same thing, that this was not the doing of the Daniels, at least not directly. The family believes someone might have used the feud as cover, knowing people would jump to conclusions. And one relative said they think this was connected to Ross's dealings in Spain, not in Scotland. That maybe it was business gone wrong, maybe he owed someone, or maybe he knew too much. And you think about it, the attack was incredibly focused. It felt like a professional job, planned by people who knew what they were doing. Now the popular theory is that it was not Daniels, but another group entirely, using the old feud to confuse everyone. With so many international gangs operating on the Costa del Sol, it wouldn't be hard for someone else to slip in, pull the trigger, and leave Scotland and Ireland to fight about it. After all, a British man from Liverpool was gunned down in Calahonda just 6 weeks earlier in the same region with the same clean style. That case is still unsolved. For now, Michael Riley is sitting in custody, waiting to be shipped to Spain, and maybe when he gets there, he might reveal the name of the person who ordered the hit on Ross Monaghan and Eddie Lyons Jr. in exchange for a reduced sentence. Now tell me, who do you think was behind the double murder? Tell me your theory in the comments below, and before you go, make sure to subscribe to my channel for more updates because this story is far from over.